you recommend people manage these properties themselves, especially in the beginning, or do you? Okay.
I do not. Maybe
So
for the first.
You don't. Do you manage any of your own anymore?
No. So I'm a rental property owner, not a landlord. I love to tell people, and the difference is before I invest, I make sure there's property management teams that can handle it and that they're good. And if there's no property management team, I don't buy there. I am not about to do the work. So I was looking for cash flow and passive income for financial freedom. And I actually found that with the 3 properties. By the time I quit, I was making $1,900 a month. And that gave me a time when I got laid off again in 2015 to build this platform up full time because I liked it and was rewarded. But $1,900 a month was enough for it. But I'm not looking for another job. I'm looking for passive income. So it's really cool to be clear. So I'm joining these landlord groups on Facebook, and they're talking about, what do you do if they haven't done this? And I'm like, why am I in here? I don't deal with this, nor do I want to, right? So I pay them their 10%, and I get it. So know what you want. There's some people who have like a lot of time on their hands, and they don't, because they just go to work and they're not doing much, right? They're like, I can manage a property, right? Because it's like, I have some husband-wife teams where the wives are stay-at-home wives, so they can handle like the calls and this and that while the husband's at work. Right. But they have all day, they're, I don't know. Even if I was a housewife, I still wouldn't do it. I wouldn't. But, make those decisions on what you want your business to look like. And mine is a hands-off business, not I'm replacing one job for another. Right. So what do you want to do?
Yeah. So you get better at screening property managers rather than getting better at managing.
Exactly.
Skill.
It is. Yes.
So, and you're buying throughout the whole U.S. in different markets, right?
Yeah. Well, I've stopped buying because I've diverted money for cryptocurrency in my own house. Listen, I'm still not rich. So if I'm $20,000, I just bought a house. So I need to put that in my house, right? That I bought in 2019. Nice. Yeah, but I've been working with people all over the country every single day, and we've been buying throughout all of 2020. Now, it was very interesting. You would think that the houses would be cheaper, but like the investors came out in some markets and was like, why are the prices going up? And in other markets, it was just fine, and we've still been purchasing throughout the last year.
I see. Okay. And as a remote investor then during COVID, was that an issue? Like once travel shut down, or were you able to, just lean on the property managers and you didn't need to visit at all?
Yeah, the property manager. Sorry, I have to tell you what my property manager was doing during all this. But for like March through June, it was harder to get in the houses. So if it wasn't empty and there was a tenant, they were like, no one's coming in the house.
Yeah.
So, and people were like, I don't know, should I get on that plane? But then after June, everyone's sort of like, I gotta get back to life. This is isolating. This is lonely. I need to make money. Like, I'm done. So then after that, people were used to, during those 3 months, people, like your plumber would come in and wear a mask, and people just got more comfortable with wearing masks. So then things just went back to normal. My clients flew all over the country, and they would just put their mask on. They were fine. Do you know what I mean? So people are learning how to navigate this without getting sick. And so as that happens, then, so it's, they continued. So it was just that first part where it was really rough. Now, my property manager, I talked to them about it because I was renewing my lease because my tenant of 3 years moved out. And so I'm like, okay, let's do month to month with all this COVID stuff. And they're like, we don't really have to. Out of 400 units, like only 3 have not paid. And I was pretty sure they will. And I was like, how did that happen? Because I'm like, I'm not doing off a hope and a prayer. But they actually explained to me what they were doing. So in Ohio, they're like, well, what we do, if there's Section 8, there's different funding sources you can go to get them help with the rent. And she's like, well, what we do, there's something called Impact in Ohio. And if my clients tell me if they can't pay by like the 7th of the month, and what we do is go through Impact, and I'll give them the paperwork and work with them to get that submitted. And Impact might take 45 days, but they generally pay. So that's why she said, my property manager legit said in Ohio is that when I go to like an eviction court and people are 4 or 5 months behind, she's like, what in the world? How do you get there? And so if you're a good property manager and you're keeping up on your skills, you know the places to go to get the money. And you know how to get your tenants to fill in those forms. She's like, we can nip that in the bud. right?
Yeah.
And so she's like, we don't have problems because when those things happen, our tenants and clients call us, we go through the process and they get it done. And that's being proactive. That's A, knowing the funding sources. It's B, letting the tenants know you're here to help them, right? And that you're the type of property manager now that's looking at people like they're crazy. Like, how are you 4 or 5 months behind before implementing a measure to circumvent that? And I tell you that story because, like, every time, some people always want to blame other people, but it generally comes back to your skill set and you staying up to date and learning that really can circumvent all of this, not other people. So it's like, stop projecting and look inside sometimes. And so I mentioned that because I know a lot of other people don't know about those resources and they need to look in their own hometown and go, what can I do to be proactive about this?
Absolutely.
So that's, and I was like, y'all a little expensive and you're a little annoying on the prices when they are a little, when we turn over, I'm like, I don't want to pay $3,000. It's not, but the neighborhood demographic has shifted. And so I can get $200 a month now after holding for 8 years. So I'm like, okay, I'll pay a little bit more. Now they're a little annoying, but like when you see things like that, that is a good property management firm. And if you have one and they're not that good, make sure you mention this to them.
Yeah. And I think it's being proactive too, not just accepting that, these tenants just haven't paid. I think a lot of tenants want to pay, but they're in a situation where they don't think they can, or they don't know about these resources.
So if you deliver it to them on a phone call, right?
Yeah.
Then they're like, oh, so now after doing this for years, not only do they know the people at the impact and at the Section 8, like they're on first name basis because they see them all the time, but their tenants, to me, just have a stress relief.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Great point. Well, I could continue to pepper you with questions all day because you're a wealth of knowledge, but I'll wrap it up. But I want to ask, so I know you specialize in helping Black investors who want to work in working class areas, and this community is made up of every race and gender. Yeah. So if someone wants to reach out to you and potentially work with you, how do they start that process?
Good. And I do work with all people. So right now I'm working with white and Black, right? And Hispanic. It's just, that's where I target, because when I sent out the call, that's who heard me. When I said it's about more than just money, that's who said yes. So, so I definitely make sure we talk about, I'm not going to shy away from talking about wealth inequality and earning less and white flight and fear. So if you're not ready to have those conversations, don't join the group, because those are our issues. We do have to navigate around them. So we're going to talk about them. And if you feel uncomfortable, but just, hey, and some people feel uncomfortable that we do address it so directly. And other people are like, I get it. So I do tend to find people who are like, yeah, we've done the work. So I work with everyone. Some people are like, and then other people are like, Lisa, hey, can you help me? I never stepped foot in this neighborhood, but I want to learn, right? So, it depends on you, right?
Yeah.
But you can reach me on my website, which is affordablerealestateinvestments.com. What I do suggest is that you join my Facebook group. There's 12,000 investors, mostly Black investors, but they're very successful. They're very much in alignment with like my culture and goals. So they talk about these issues. You see them taking care of their places. They care about their communities. You know what I mean? And so if you want to join that, and I think that's why my community is so great, because we're all here to help each other, but we all are thinking about more than just money. And it's amazing how when you do think about the humans, your clients, and your own money, how when you think of all of them, your businesses don't have the same issues other people's businesses you have, right?
Absolutely.
And so you can schedule a strategy session and join the Facebook group. And I like the Facebook group because you can see the energy in the community and see if that's something you want to be a part of. But I do strategy sessions where just today I'm like, okay, how much money do you have? Where are you located? Are you willing to do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? And we come up with a plan. Because, I've been doing this for 8 years. So I'm like, it's almost like a savant where like someone who doesn't see numbers, they see colors. So you can give them like 250 times 399 and they can figure it out. Yeah. Like, I feel like that sometimes when you tell me how much money you have,
and start to put the pieces together. Yeah.
I swear it's like that. So awesome. We can do a strategy session where I go over where you're at, see what you want to do, tell you what I've seen, and then you decide, is this something you want to do or not? Like one of the questions is, do you want to travel? Because there's none where you're at. Can you jump on a plane? My clients do it all the time. It's not a big deal. Do you want to learn it, or are you still too worried about it? And if they're still too worried about it, well, okay, where you live, these are the prices, bump it up to 120,000.